How to get Yhwach. Yhwach is a secret Rift unit. You can get him in Rift. However, you can buy the Vow Stone from the Rift shop for 500 Rift token for a guaranteed drop. Once you have the Vow Stone, remember to go to your item and use it, and the next time you complete Rift, you will get him. Why use Yhwach? He has insane DPS, he can give damage buff to the team, and he is immune to CC. And then traits. He has two arguably best traits. And through my finding, his best trait for pure DPS is Monarch, but it will limit his support ability. And Ethereal, while group damage is very close to Monarch, it will do slightly less damage and you will have to spend more money in order to upgrade all three to max. But Yhwach will be able to give you your team support. In short, Monarch is better when used in stages that had limited wave with limited amount of resources, while Ethereal will be better in long form content like Infinite because of the team-wide buff. However, if you don't have one of those two traits, Solar, Deadeye, Blitz is also worth keeping. And for Familiar, since Pashiru passive doesn't work on him, I mean it shouldn't work on him, but it seems to work sometimes, so I don't know what's going on. So I recommend using either Gon or Pandoru, depend which one you have and which has better stat. I would say Gon overall is a little bit better for damage. His first passive make him immune to status alignment and increases damage up to 30% for each crowd control dodge. His second passive, when Yhwach attack, he will do an additional attack on the last enemy in range at the same time. Only apply if the first and the last enemy are different. And then his third passive, he gained 5% range up to 20% for every ability uses. Ability. His ability allowed him to switch between two modes, DPS and support. In DPS mode, Yhwach apply a minus 20% and 10% range debuff to all of your unit, but gain 10% damage and 5% range per affected unit. This make him strong individually but weaken his team. In support mode, Yhwach buff nearby unit with 15% damage but loses 30% of his own damage. This mode works best when supporting your team. And for optimal strategy, running 2 DPS Yhwach and 1 support Yhwach negate the DPS mode debuff, allowing the full 15% buff with no drawbacks to your team. However, you should use 3 DPS Yhwach if only Yhwach is max. If 2 or 3 other unit is max or a Monarch is max, use 2 DPS and 1 support Yhwach for higher overall team damage. When switching to 2 DPS and 1 support, start with all 3 Yhwach in DPS mode and then switching 1 to support to ensure proper buff registration. Lastly, I tried full auto mode in the hope of using Subaru's second passive. In short, it doesn't work. And for Monarch Yhwach, you will always want to stay in your DPS form, meaning that you want to bring a team with as much placement as possible, which brings me to Synergy. Yhwach synergizes best with multi-placement unit. Gazelle with 9 placement is ideal, while rare unit with 6 placement aren't recommended due to DPS loss. Mythic unit like Cheyenne and Itadori have 5 placement but aren't optimal. Subaru above unit with 3 placement and a 20% damage buff is highly effective, equating to a 5 placement unit. And Ragnar pairs well as a secondary DPS, but with only 1 placement, his buff contribution is low. However, to optimize Ragnar buff, set all your Yhwach unit to support mode, while damage debuff is negated but range debuff remains. So how to use Yhwach? Here I'm doing Rift with Yhwach, Gazelle, Ragnar, Subaru, and 2 form. And for this, you want to make sure that your form is close to Yhwach so he can get the buff, and use skill on Subaru and then use your skill on your Yhwach 4 times to get the max range buff. Go to support and then start doing your Ragnar again. However, here I did make a slight mistake. I should have made all the Yhwach into the support mode, and then here, as you can see, the range is actually negative. At the end, we actually managed to get the MVP. So that goes to show how strong Yhwach is. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and see you